In a world where zombies, ghosts, serial killers, and vampires all exist, it's Nico, Brian, Mike, and Dustin, and they are all that stand between you and the films that could end the world. Welcome to the Don't Go Out There Horror Movie Podcast.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Don't Go Out There Horror Movie Review Podcast. Just want to thank all of our fans and listeners. Really appreciate all support. You guys are awesome. Before we jump into tonight's legendary blood donor review, I just want to give a quick shout out to our website, don'tgoouthere.com. Everything about our show is on there. All of our newest episodes and interviews, you can listen to those there. We got our store, all of our new merch, new apparel. It's on there. We have Shan's Etsy page attached as well if you want to grab a tumbler. All of our blogs, we've all our think pieces. All of our social media links are on there as well. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Like us, subscribe us, follow us, all that good stuff. We've almost got to 800 followers or subscribers on YouTube. Definitely go give us a subscription on there. Really help us out. And we just love meeting new people, meeting new fans. It's truly an honor that people are big fans, ask us questions every week. We get blood donors. We're doing a review tonight. None of us know this guy, but through the power of social media and this podcast, we know him. So we definitely appreciate all of our fans. I'm just going to address a quick issue. Ghostbusters Afterlife, it's not popping up on Apple Podcasts for some reason. It's a SoundCloud issue. We truly apologize, and we're working on getting that fixed. And we're looking at transitioning to a new podcast site host, because this is just unacceptable, and we truly apologize to all of our Apple Podcast listeners. Tonight we're reviewing brother Mike Aslesons. He's a legendary blood donor. We're reviewing his pick, 2009's The Collector. I'll go first, give my general thoughts, then Mike, you can go next. I first saw this movie for the first time a few months back. I just thought the movie was just okay. It just felt like, when we discussed Hostel, the whole torture porn thing, I wouldn't say this movie is that, but it toes the line. It's really gory. It's really over the top in the gore, the traps, just like Saw. And, Marcus Dunstan, he was the writer for, I believe, 4, 5, 6, and 3D. So it makes sense that there's so many traps in the gore and all that. But I just thought the movie was okay. But, after some rewatches, doing notes, and watching the sequel, The Collection, I really enjoy this movie a lot more. And I'm just a big fan of Josh Stewart, Arkin in this movie. I'm a big fan of his in general. I think he does a great job. I think the effects look good in this movie. I think the Collector is a cool antagonist as well. I would like to see a third movie, honestly, but it's just going to be really different considering the end of The Collection, which I won't spoil right now. But I'll just say that I don't love this movie just because I have some really big issues with it. But I do enjoy it. It's got a great runtime. I'm sure all of us will appreciate the runtime. It's never really boring, honestly. But like I said, like the movie, don't love it. Mike, you want to go next with your thoughts?
Yeah, sure. So I think this movie is just okay. It's definitely not bad, or I'm not looking at my watch ready for it to be over. But there's a mixed bag here for sure. Look, I like the kind of one single setting that this movie has. It takes place for the most part in that one house. And I know I've been on here talking about that before, and here I am again. I kind of like those movies that are contained if it's done well. And I like the look of The Collector. I like some of the sounds and shots. Now I'm a mixed bag on some of the shots that we get. Ones that involve the traps I think are okay because even Saw kind of does that. But this movie has some weird directorial slash cinematography choices with the way it uses the camera. I know that sounds really film nerd of me to say, but it was a distraction in a few scenes. Like I'm kind of like, why are we doing this? Like let's just focus on what's going on in the house. And so if it hits for you, that's great. It just didn't hit for me. But again, the character of Arkin I think is awesome, especially in a slasher film where you normally don't get the protagonist getting this much character depth or this much of a character arc, and I think that it pulls it off well. I've only seen The Collection one time. I need to go back and rewatch it. Uh, as far as this movie goes, though, I think this, I mean, from what I remember about the collection, this seems like it could be a one individual film, but it does leave you at the end of the movie kind of wanting to see, well, what the hell just happened here? And so there's some good, there's some bad, the facts of life. Oh, sorry. Only like two people will get that reference, but that's okay. Um, Again, I like the movie. I don't love it. I, I think it's just okay. It's a pretty solid slasher movie, for lack of a better term. And I will say, because it kind of started out as a Saw script, it kind of feels too much like a Saw movie. It's almost like uh, it's almost like Jigsaw and Jason Voorhees had a baby or something. Like I'm just, it's almost too close to that same beat by beat that you get in the Saw movies. But I think it's unique enough to where I can enjoy it on its own.
Yeah, I had never seen this movie either until a few days ago, a couple days ago. Hell, it might have been yesterday, but actually, I think it was yesterday. And I didn't look it up beforehand. I looked it up on IMDb just to see two things. Number one, I wanted to see what the like if there's any big names in it that I knew, and then number two, just to see the general consensus, the IMDb rating, because I wanted to know, is this a well received movie or not? I thought the poster looked cool. It got my attention. I didn't really recognize any of the actors in it, although Josh Stewart, the guy that plays Arkin, I definitely know him from The Dark Knight, or I guess Dark Knight Rises. Anyway, he's in that trilogy as one of the support roles. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. It was. It's not something that I don't think it's a perfect 10 by no stretch of the imagination, but I think it's a creative. I like the concept, man. You've got like Arkin's not a good guy. Like he was breaking in these people's houses or
Absolutely,
these
great
people's
point.
house to steal something, to rob them blind, and yet he finds himself in the hero role. And so it's interesting. You got two bad people playing against each other, and you have to pick the lesser of two evils, literally. So that's an interesting concept, and yeah, I enjoyed it. I've got issues with it, particularly the ending, but we'll get into that in the scene by scene.
Alrighty, guys, you got any more opening thoughts before we jump into the scene by scene?
Really quick to piggyback off of you, Dustin. That's probably my favorite aspect of this film is that our lead protagonist is just a human being. He's flawed, very much so. Like you said, not a good guy, and but doing bad things for not justifiable reasons. I don't believe in that, but doing bad things for reasons that are better than the collector is, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. The collector, is basically trying to torture people because he enjoys it. And Arkin, in this case, is doing bad things to, try to take care of its family. So it's still bad. It's all bad. I just think it was very interesting to have just a normal human being be the main person here.
Yeah. Now I will say also before we go, sorry, I don't remember which one of you said it, but one of you said, maybe both of you said you like the look of the collector. I fucking hated the gimp mask. I'm not gonna lie. Like this is not some BDSM shit. Like this isn't a sexual pervert that's doing this. So why is he dressed like
No, he
he's
kind of was. He was he
well?
was he was watching the daughter and the boyfriend pretty intensely.
Well, yeah, but he was like we didn't get the sense that he was. I don't know that's true, but she had some things on her, so I wouldn't look away either. Well, actually, I think I would because I think she was supposed to be a teenager in this movie. So never mind that. But in real life, she wasn't.
She wasn't in real life. I looked it up. You're good,
Yeah,
buddy.
exactly. She's 3 years older than me in real life, so we're good. But no, man, he looked like he was one of those motherfuckers that likes to be handcuffed and spanked and dominated. Like no,
We
don't
don't
like
kink
that.
shame on this show, Dustin.
I don't kink shame on the show, but I also don't go on that section of the hub. That's not my tab, so that's not my category. I don't want to see it in my horror movies.
No, but I actually agree with you, Dustin, about the collector, and I'll touch on that at the end. Mike, he said he's seen the collection, so he'll understand my point of view when we get to it. But
Right.
I mean, just spoiling out, he's just a regular guy. You find that out, but he's super strong and he's super elaborate with these traps, and that's a big issue with me. But any more other opening thoughts before we just jump into it? All right, we're going to start scene by scene now. We'll have Mike Aselson join us later on after the scene by scene. Looking forward to it. All right, the film starts with close-up of an outside light full of bugs. The camera covers the exterior of this big house, and a car pulls into the driveway. Larry and Gina walk inside cheerfully, and he says he'll be up in a bit. He gets out some champagne and looks at some mail and is instantly alarmed when the lights don't turn on. Gina calls for him, and he runs upstairs. They see a big red trunk, and neither know why it's here. A card for the collection, the note says, and it shakes. Larry opens the box, and he's grabbed from behind. Opening credits and title card now with an electronic song and visuals of homes, bugs, dogs, skeletons, and much more. We see a man pulling the red trunk down a hall and a bound person scream. We get shots of some trees and a song plays as we see work being done at the Chase house. We now meet Arkin, who is asked how everything is going. Arkin looks through some photos and see Michael is a jewelry broker. Arkin is jump scared by Hannah, who invites him to a tea party as he stares at Victoria looking in the mirror. He joins her as he thanks the teddy bear for the good tea. He asks Hannah what kind of special present would she want. Michael walks in and asks if everything is okay when he sees them having their tea party, and Arkin stops Hannah from grabbing the cup with a spider on it. He says he got the door fixed and goes outside to smoke. He's working on another door now as these wasps begin to swarm him. Arkin tells the exterminator about the wasp nest. Arkin lights up another cigarette, and Jill asks for a drag. They talk about each other's names, and she says he's about to see a fight. She walks away and climbs up into her room. Her mom is in her room, and they argue. She doesn't want to go on the family vacation. Michael gives Arkin his weekly pay and a little extra since he has a young daughter. He wishes Michael a safe trip. Arkin is with his daughter now at the bowling alley, who is drawing. He says he's got someone who wants to meet her and close her eyes. It's a teddy bear, and she asks if she can keep it. Lisa walks up slamming a drink down and asks if he has it. She thanks her daddy for the gift. She gets angry. He was supposed to be here 6 hours ago and asks if he has the money. It's not as much as he promised, and she says she has to have it today. They're loan sharks, and he asks to talk to them. She says she's going to leave tonight, and he says they'll chase her. He says give me until midnight and kisses her. He looks at his little girl and walks out to a payphone. He calls, and he says he's found what he's looking for, and we now see strippers in a bar as Arkin walks in. He and Roy walk outside and get into the back of a limo. Roy says he's grown into his skin. Arkin says 50%. The family is out of town, and Roy says he can't do it tonight. Roy says taking my help means he did accept his terms. Roy asks his request, and they lock the doors and begin to burn Arkin's hand with a lighter. Arkin says he's the only guy he knows who can crack this safe, and Roy says 40, take it or leave it. I guess I'll see you tonight as Arkin walks down the green-lit street. We now see overhead shots of Arkin pulling into the Chase house. He parks and puts on the ski mask and runs up to the house, and it's foggy as hell. The dog charges at him but only nips his ski mask, and Arkin gets away. Arkin picks the lock and makes it inside the home. He walks slowly upstairs and looks in Hannah's room, scoping the room out. He puts on gloves and reveals the safe under a mirror. He removes his mask and begins to crack the safe combo. He hears a creaking in the house and pauses for a moment. He stops again as we see a key open the door and another person enters the home. Arkin hides in a room as the other person walks up the stairs. Overhead shot of both men, and Arkin attempts to escape now, but the door is locked and he sees 4 additional deadlocks have been added to the door. Arkin sees the time and goes back upstairs to crack the code as the collector goes into the basement. Arkin hears a man yelling, "Help me," from the vents and screams. He puts the mirror back when we see Michael fall out and he screams, "Why are you doing this, you son of a bitch?" He grabs a golf club that's rigged to levers that snatch him to the roof and drop him to the floor below. The collector now grabs him by the ankles and drags him down the hall. All right, Mike, that was the opening set of scenes. What'd you think, brother?
Yeah, so I like this cold open. It kind of puts me in a place where, oh shit, what the hell is going on here? Now, I will say, following that cold open is like a really weird music video almost. Like the next 4 minutes is music. Normally I'm for music and movies. Those two things kind of go together. I've talked about music being a character in certain movies and everything here. I didn't think the music in this movie was my cup of tea. I know it was of its time, but it just, I don't know. I don't think it aged well. It didn't work for me. But I like this. I like how we kind of start this with like two things going on at once. You've got, Arkin working on the house and everything else, and playing with the little girl, and then you got this exterminator crew here, and it's just Arkin trying to make an honest living. Uh, you kind of get to know the family a little bit, even through these like weird shots of the pictures. What the dynamic is. Especially when Arkin's talking to the daughter and she asks him for a drag. There's like, she's obviously this rebellious teen as compared to what her parents want her to be. She doesn't want to go on this vacation. We've all been that teen, or at least I was. You regret it later. So just for a little advice for any people that age listening, go on your family vacations, man. Even if it doesn't seem like it's gonna be awesome, do it anyway. But that aside, then you get out of that like kind of nice cushiony world, and you get put in Arkin's world, which is kind of a seedy underbelly of life. And obviously he's got a child of his own, and he clearly loves her, and he clearly loves his wife, is willing to do whatever it takes to put food on the table and pay the bills. But some of those things aren't so savory. And again, I wish we saw this wife again, because, hey, man, I only bring that catchphrase out of retirement occasionally, so I don't want to just use it all the time. But, man, anyway. I would also go try to find a way to get her some money. Now, I say all that. Arkin, not a great guy here, man, because this family seems to be extending an olive branch to you. Dad gives you extra, and then you go and kind of want to rob their house. I love that dynamic of he's almost the boogeyman being followed by yet another boogie. Like, as he walks, the collector walks. As he makes a sound on the other side of the house, the collector makes a sound. And I can't think of another movie like that where you've got, someone trying to do something bad, but there's somebody doing something even worse simultaneously at the same time. That safe thing. Hey, let me tell you something. Dustin, I know you know this. You know who could crack that safe? Billy Bob fucking Thornton. That's who. My man, Bad Santa. He cracked that safe with the quickness, son. I'm just saying, my man Santa is a lot less rusty than him. But, yeah, so I like this back and forth dynamic, and I like that the dad in that moment thinks that Arkin is, kind of a part of what's happening to him. He's asking him, why are you doing this? When he was just there to take all his shit. No big deal. Oh, it's so, it's fine. And one thing that bothers me about this movie is no one else really questions why Arkin is even here. It's just kind of like, well, why are you here? Were you going to rob? Like, or maybe I missed it. I don't know. But it didn't show up in my notes. But again, I think this set of scenes is pretty good at pulling me in to figure out, well, what's the dynamic here? I liked it all kind of once we're here at this house at night, it stays here for the most part. And I think that makes for an intriguing film. And now that you get like a little peek of the collector mask, I know some people liked it and some people didn't, but I tend to err on the side of liking it from a distance. If it gets a little too up close, it's not my favorite mask, but I do enjoy it. So not a bad set of scenes at all.
Yeah. So right off the bat, I'm intrigued because like we get a pretty action-packed set of scenes before the title card, but then I'm immediately confused because we see him like open this box and it's like, who the hell grabbed him? Like, that looked like his wife's hand. It looked like a very feminine arm that grabbed him. But anyway, when you open the box, then we get that title card and credit sequence. Man, I agree. I didn't like that at all. That music sucked. It was very annoying, out of place, and forced. It didn't feel right. I think it was interesting. The next, after the title card and credit sequence, we get introduced to the family and we meet Arkin and everybody. Interesting choice by the director here because we got some very close-up shots of the faces in this set. It's really weird. I mean, the camera is right up in their faces. It was just an odd choice. We got a really weird vibe from Arkin when he was doing work around the house. Like, I don't know. It's just the way he was shot and the way that he was walking and carrying himself seemed like something was off. So you got a red flag immediately regarding his character. Next thing I wrote was Lisa, Jill, Cindy. Who the hell picked these character names? This movie came out in 2009, not 1994. Like, these are some weird names. Do you know anyone that's named Lisa as a little girl, or Cindy? Like, that's weird to me. But we get to meet Roy in this set of scenes, who's played by Robert Wisdom. And I've said this before, and I say it every damn time I see him, because every time I rewatch The Wire, I think, and I just finished a Wire rewatch, if they ever made a movie about Leonard Hamilton, he would be the perfect actor to play Coach Ham. Like, holy shit, he could pull that off. Looks very close. But in the end, we kind of find out, like, his character's kind of pointless. I've got that later in the movie, but like, or later in my breakdown of the set of scenes. But the whole subplot with the loan sharks and stuff was really unnecessary. I do like, excuse me, lost my place. Interesting approach by Arkin to put one glove on after he's already inside the house. I'm sure the other hand wouldn't leave any fingerprints. And then also, what's the point of a ski mask if you're going to take it off while still committing the crime? Like, if there's cameras there, buddy, you're fucked now. And you should have put those gloves on outside the house. That was weird. I like we get a very cool overhead shot of the Collector and Arkin navigating from room to room. I really like that. That was cool. Like the overhead shot when they go in and out of the doors, because it really puts in perspective how close of a call it was, like how close the Collector was right on Arkin's heels. And that was just really cool. We don't see that enough, I don't think. Let's see. Our first trap. What an insane trap it was. Hell yeah. Snatched his ass up and dragged him and then dropped him from the ceiling. That's what I'm talking about. But also, that's what he gets for keeping just one club in his golf bag. What the hell are you doing, dude? You just had one iron in your bag, and why is your bag in your bedroom anyway, you dipshit?
I said the same thing. Stupid. Jesus.
But that was a hell of a trap, though. When I saw that, I was like, oh, shit. That was awesome. Let's see here. I do like how they don't just directly go into what we saw in the open. We get so entrenched in this storyline that you almost forget, oh, yeah, there was a couple in the beginning that got home from date night and there's a red box in their house. You can almost forget about that. So I like that we don't just go right back into that. I think we got a very solid opening that has my interest, because the premise is awesome. Like I said, a criminal having to outmaneuver another criminal because they both targeted the same house. That's fucking awesome. This is like, well, I'll save it for the next set of scenes, but yeah, I'm in so far.
Hey, I just want to say, golly, I feel like I haven't had any strong disagreeing takes with anyone on this show in a while. You know, it's been a little hunky-dory. Brother, I hated that first trap. That was straight out of Kevin McAllister's playbook, man.
Well, actually, okay, fuck it. That's what I had my next set of scenes was, this is some crazy shit. It's like Macaulay Culkin grew up to be a sociopath. This movie really is like this movie is if Jigsaw broke into Kevin McAllister's house and rigged it up, and they were both just fucking with each other.
Have you not seen that theory on Reddit that Kevin McAllister grows up to be Jigsaw? It's great shit.
No, I've never in my life been on Reddit. I know that's probably hard to believe, but I've never in my life been on Reddit.
Well, I didn't get on Reddit to see it. I just know that's where it was originated from. But I'll send you like it's a side by side of the two of them, and they kind of go over how that came to be. It's actually pretty interesting. It doesn't quite line up, but it's still fun.
I think What Culture did a video on like those.
Yeah, they did.
The conspiracy theories and horror. Yeah, as soon as you brought up Kevin McAllister and Jigsaw, I was like, there's already a conspiracy theory about that.
Oh, geez.
But I think with the whole one iron thing, I think the Collector did that, honestly, just to make it, you know, he's obviously trying to trap him. I think he probably just took the rest of them out so he didn't have any weapons. But that's just me thinking. I mean, you never know.
Dude, every time the Collector throws one of those knives, I think of that episode of South Park where Butters gets the ninja star stuck in his eye.
Dude, that's one of my favorite episodes, man.
It's a goat episode. It really is. But it's so like, especially when one in later in the movie hits the man in the eye. I'm like, well, geez. Someone watched the episode of South Park a couple years ago.
They're gonna have to dress him up like a dog and try to get him to a vet, because his mom would be pissed if he knew he was playing with martial arts weapons.
God, I fucking love Butters.
My favorite character. Him and Randy Marsh, my favorite characters. Anyway, go ahead. We're way off the rails.
All right. All right. Arkin sees the windows all boarded up and goes to make a call, but it has a needle sticking out the ear hole, and there are razors in the boards to prevent escape. He completely mutilates his hand, removing it from the razors. He wraps his wound in a piece of his shirt and now almost walks into some tripwire. He hears chains and hides in a room as we see the collector scoping the place out. Arkin sees the whole place is basically booby-trapped now. He now walks into a room and cuts his cheek on wire that spans the entire room. The next room he navigates through is completely covered in bear traps. The next set of stairs is completely covered with nails sticking up. He goes down into the pitch-black basement and he hears the footsteps above him. He's grabbed by Michael, bound to a chair gruesomely, who screams, and Arkin tells him to shut the fuck up. He's not a part of this. Michael says to help his wife. He says Jill isn't here and not sure where Hannah is. Michael tells him to get the gun in his safe. Arkin tells him to stay quiet, and he checks on Victoria now, who is handcuffed in a bathtub, and her eyes are taped up and her mouth is bound. He removes her gag, and he says he can't take off her eye cover. He says he will save Hannah. He tells her he needs to scream for a distraction to get upstairs and to find her. She begins screaming, and the collector goes downstairs swiftly, and Arkin heads upstairs sneakily. The collector rubs her face and begins to choke her. He grabs her tongue and asks if he's going to cut it off. Arkin hears Michael gasping and screaming and begins to crack the safe. Arkin also takes the jewel. Bad news. Arkin has a gun, but the bullet box is empty. He hears a knocking noise thinking it's Hannah. He opens the closet and finds the red trunk. He opens the trunk and Larry pops out and tells Arkin to get out now. He doesn't know the chases and tells Arkin he collects people. He kills the people he doesn't want. Larry begins to talk too much and Arkin locks him back up. Arkin goes into another room with an open window, but the floor is covered in acid. His shoes begin to melt and we see the cat dying on the floor. The collector heads towards the ruckus. Arkin throws his shoes out the window and saves the cat, throwing out the window. However, the cat gets caught in another trap that cuts it in half, covering Arkin in its blood. He covers his other shoe and hides under a bunch of pillows. The collector doesn't see anything and leaves the room. Arkin grabs some paper clips and exits the room as the collector locks the red trunk. All right, Mike, that's the next set of scenes I got. What'd you think?
Going back to something Dustin said in the last thing that he was talking about is, I forgot all about this couple and this red fucking box because I'm so invested in everything else. And it was kind of like a, oh shit moment when that happened, you know, just to kind of jump around here. But first of all, my man, I wouldn't pick up anything in this house. I wouldn't touch anything in this house. And as soon as he picked up the phone, I was like, oh, fuck, something's going to happen. Man, I can't tell you anything more annoying, more than painful than to have that phone prick me in the ear. Man, God, I'd rather have Freddy Krueger's tongue lick me after picking the phone up than have that happen. Yeah, man, I was like, I think the room that had the floor full of acid is really cool. Like, what a cool, unique idea. It's a interesting twist on the floor is lava game where he had to kind of walk across because his shoe was melting. I thought that was, again, there's some unique stuff in here. And I talked about the red box. I just forgot all about these people. And, you know, he kind of gives us a small enough origin story on who this villain is. He's the collector. He collects people. And again, we don't know everything, but we at least have an idea of the force that we're dealing with. You know, Arkin is pretty good on his, like, thinking on his feet. You know, I will say he doesn't make all the best choices in the world, but, you know, he does okay. One more quick thing. I hate cats. I've never been shy about hating cats. I'm sorry if you love cats. However, that was tough to watch. That was a freaking cat guillotine, man. Like, that was sad shit, to be honest with you. And maybe our first, like, glimpse of like, well, we've already got a little bit of torture, like a little bit of blood, a little bit of brutality. But to me, it was the first, like, oh, like, okay, we're gonna get some, not torture-esque, but this movie is not torture porn by any means. But it sure does teeter on that line just a little bit. So I think this set of scenes is interesting. I think this is where some of the traps and the stuff that the collector has set out makes me go, wow, that was okay. That was pretty fucking cool. Because there's some of these that I don't like. I talked about the Kevin McAllister one, and there's one later that just kind of irks me. I think it's dumb, and the Ninja Death Star. But there's stuff like this where I've never seen a floor that had a acid covered in it and your shoes melt as you walk. Like, that's pretty fucking smart if you ask me. So I think this is a pretty good set of scenes.
Yeah, this is some crazy shit. This house is rigged up. I mean, it's seriously like Kevin McAllister had an unlimited budget and he knew a week in advance that Harry and Marv were breaking in. Arkin was a little too inconsistent for my taste with how he navigated through this house. He saw a couple of trip lines, but then right after seeing them, we would see him walking into the next room, like walking backwards without his head on a swivel, like not looking around at all. So, that gave me a lot of anxiety because I'm like, dude, you just saw a tripwire and now you're walking through here. There could be one right there and you're just like oblivious to it. I get that it's comforting for the Chase family that he's saying that he'll help, but I'd also have to be skeptical and wonder why the hell he's in my house. You mentioned that earlier, Mike. Like, that's fucking weird to me. Like, I get it that he's saying that he'll help you and you see his face. He's a familiar face. Right. But at the same time, why the fuck is he here? Some bad shit has just happened to me. Anybody that's in my house that's not my family, I'm going to be skeptical of. And they didn't even ask him, why are you here?
Absolutely.
So that bothered me.
Yes.
And, he is pretty quick on his feet at times with thinking of playing stuff, telling her, hey, I need you to yell. I need you to distract him so I can get upstairs. But, man, that was gut-wrenching when the collector comes downstairs and grabs her tongue with that pair of pliers. I was like, oh, God, please don't do it. And if you do it, come on, camera, pan away. Like, do not show me this. I did not want to see that. That was rough. We find out what happened to the guy in the beginning here. And like I said, I like that we didn't go back to it immediately. But I got to admit, it was very lazy and disappointing for me for Larry to be the one to explain what the collector's MO is. Like, he's been in this box and now he's free from the boxes. Oh, he doesn't kill people. He collects them. And I don't know. I would rather us figure that out on our own, which we pretty much would have. Obviously, if he's keeping this motherfucker in a box, he collects people. But I don't know. I don't like it when the plot is explicitly told to us as an audience because the writer, director think that we're too dumb to figure it out. And that's what it felt like to me. Man, you mentioned the cat. So yeah, poor cat stuck in the acid there. That was just unnecessary. That, animal deaths in movies 99% of the time are just unnecessary. It's like, come on, Absolutely. Man, like don't do that. But I gotta say, the cat's death was fucking hilarious because when he got that cat free and then he tossed it, tried to do a good thing, tried to set the cat free, and its head got cut off. Like, holy shit. It reminded me of the scene in The Office when Dwight is testing the fire alarms and Angela's freaking out and she tosses a cat up into ceiling tiles for Oscar to save it. And she tosses the cat up and it immediately falls down through another ceiling tile. It's like she tried to do the right thing. It was counterproductive. That's what this was. He tried to save the cat and the cat's head got cut off. That was fucking awesome. Respectfully. Sorry, PETA. Now, the thing about that set of scenes also, though, is how the hell did Arkin get behind all those throw pillows that fast and get them all arranged like that, like they were? Like, that's the most unbelievable shit in this whole movie, I think. But overall, it's a very entertaining set of scenes because we get a look at all the shit we're about to see. There's some crazy traps. We get a crazy cat death, and I'm not looking away from the screen.
One more thing. This woman's screams were agonizing. Like, just every time they have this woman scream and it really happens in the next set of scenes here, it's just blood-curdling scream. Like, not in like that like Scream Queen way, but in that, oh shit, someone's being tortured way. Which you mentioned the tongue grab. That's where I'm like, oh, well, you shut the hell up.
So another thing that I thought that I put in my notes, but apparently I didn't because I can't find it in this set of scenes or the next set of scenes, but I really hated the score in this movie because a lot of those moans and screams and groans, I don't think they were the Chase family. especially when he is first in the bedroom, like looking at this, lifting the mirror up, looking at the safe. Because I think if those were the Chase family that we were hearing, and he would have heard them, he wouldn't have been so nonchalant about, okay, I'm still trying to break into this. I think he'd have been freaked out and left or something. But the fact that they're using moans and screams and groans like this in the score, really hated that choice.
Me too. I thought all the music was pretty bad. Like,
Yeah.
I think if they had one big negative about this film, I think it would be that.
Oh, I found it. It was in my first set of notes, and I missed it on the first set scene, so we went back.
It's all good. Dustin, I just want to play devil's advocate just real quick, and I'm not trying to argue with you or nothing. I think the only pass I'll give the Chase family with just believing Arkin or wondering why he's there is my man Michael got snatched up by the collector and drugged downstairs by this masked guy. But the problem, what I would agree with you is, why didn't he ask Arkin, why are you here?
Yeah.
Like, why the hell are you in this
Why
room?
the fuck are you here? Yes,
That's all I'm saying, because like
Yeah.
I said, if I'm being tortured in my own home, then I'm just skeptical of everyone. If I ask you and you have a legit answer, or you assure me that you're there for my benefit, you're trying to help me, cool. But I at least want to know why the fuck you're in my home.
Yeah, because he does say, I didn't, because, Arkin does say, I'm not doing all this, but he
Right.
doesn't really ask Arkin, like, hey, but for real, though, why are you here?
Yeah.
So they should have added that. I agree with you. All right, the next set of scenes, Arkin is back downstairs, and he finds Michael's body completely mutilated and gutted, hanging upside down. He's back to Victoria and removes the tape covering her eyes. He says he can't find Hannah, and she asks, how's Michael? Arkin lies and says he's okay. He begins to pick her handcuffs, and she says she can't do this. I gotta get out of here. She says she prepared herself for rape or robbery, but not this. I don't want to die. He says he's going to hide her and keep her eyes on my back. She says she sees Michael's upside down body and panics. She runs up the stairs and into the collector's knife, who stabs her repeatedly. She falls down the stairs, and Arkin hides under the desk. The collector walks towards the desk, but is staring at a spider and grabs it. He sets it free outside. The collector grabs Victoria's body and drags her away into another room and slams the door. Arkin escapes and goes to run upstairs. He pours gasoline on her body, and he begins to sew her mouth shut. Arkin begins to knock boards loose as he yells, why didn't you listen to me? He hears a car horn as Jill and her boyfriend Chad make it home. Arkin uses a lamp to bust out the window, and he yells out for Jill to stop. Jill doesn't hear, and she tries to unlock the door, but Chad kisses her outside of the front door. She leads him around to the side door, and the collector unlocks all the locks for her. He posts up, watching Jill and Chad walk inside. They begin to kiss again, and she pulls away as they almost step onto the nails on the steps. He lays her on a table, and Arkin watches above. He creeps down the steps as Chad almost trips the tripwire several times. The collector licks his lips as the two get more intimate. Jill looks over and sees the collector. They spring up, and Chad goes to punch him, but gets a knife through his hand. He throws Chad into another trap that cuts his fingers off, and then he falls into all the bear traps that cut his limbs off and crush his face. Whew! Jill calls 911 but drops her phone as the collector drags her away. Arkin gets the rest of the boards off the window, and we see Jill handcuffed to the rails on the steps. An alarm clock goes off, and the collector runs upstairs, and Arkin runs down, and he lets Jill free. She asks, where's her family? And she grabs a pair of scissors attached to a wire that pulls her into a screen covered in nails, killing her. The collector looks at her dead body, and Arkin runs back upstairs. He pulls Larry out the trunk, who has his feet attached, and Arkin punches out the glass. He makes it on the roof into the ground below. He takes off running and is free until he looks back and he sees Hannah in the window upstairs and the collector in the window below. Arkin climbs back onto the roof, and Hannah screams when she sees Larry, and the collector chases after her. Arkin ambushes him, hitting him, and locks them into another room. The collector beats on the door. Arkin says he needs her help. Collector breaks into the room, and he pushes the fish tank over, and she drops the TV, electrocuting Larry to death, and he stands on his dead body, throwing knives at Arkin. He runs into another room and gets caught in hanging fishing hooks. Collector uses Larry's head to bash in the door. He drops Hannah down the laundry chute, and the collector gets into the room. He slams Arkin below, and they fight. Arkin removes his mask, but then is punched and knocked out cold. And the next set of scenes are ending. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, so man, a lot of action happens in this set of scenes. this is I kind of hinted at it in my thing, but this death slash torturing of Victoria is tough to watch. It's tough to stomach. First of all, she's saved, then realizes that her husband is hanging upside down. He's dead, and he flips out, wants to run out. I still don't quite understand why. Runs right into the collector, of course. But the brutal scene of her mouth being sewn shut with her screaming and agonizing in pain, just absolutely hard to watch, man. It was really hard for me to watch that scene again. And again, they kind of ruin it a little bit by cutting back and forth with some other shots. I guess they wanted to lessen the blow and not make it. I just would have showed it for a little bit and then moved on, because that way you get the screams after that, and that's all we really need to know what's taking place there. But I think it added some real gruesome stuff. I will say, small nitpick, and this just goes for a general thing about this movie. This movie feels a little mean, and I don't mean now outside of the character of Arkin, because I think his character arc in saving the kid is really, really good. But some of the stuff in this, some of the kills anyway, just feel a little mean, and that's probably my take on slashers. Sometimes I like to have fun with those things, and there's not at any point in this movie am I having fun with what's being done by the collector. So small nitpick, but that's just my personal taste. It doesn't mean that it can't be good. Then you get Jill and her boyfriend. And I knew that, it's almost like Jill was here to kind of be a little bit of sex appeal, and that's the direction we were going to go. We kind of got that rebellious personality from her earlier. So then I've been wondering this whole time where Jill was. And then they could have hinted at it earlier and I just missed it. But I'm like, where the hell is, how are they going to wrap this in? And then I'm like, oh, shit. Now they're both going to die for sure. One thing I want to say. This trap of the boyfriend is just as hard to watch as the damn as Victoria having her mouth sewn shut. I think it's a brutal trap. I love it. Again, I say trap. This sounds like we're talking about a Saw movie. Well, we kind of are in a weird way. But I love that trap. I think it works. It starts with his fingers, comes in, gets basically an open, wide mouth bear trap on him. On the flip side of that, I don't like this trap they used to kill Jill. How come Jill didn't ask why Arkin was there in the first fucking place? Why are you here? I would have immediately thought you were bad. Just being honest. But that's beside the point. I'm not going to beat the dead horse anymore. They were idiots about not asking. But to go pull the scissors when I know you're in a state of panic and fear, but this man's trying to tell you to not do that. And you do it anyway. I think her flying through the air was cool, but I'm not a big fan of the trap overall. I don't think it did a whole lot for me, but it was kind of cool to see the aftermath of it, which is her stuck on the wall with something in the side of her face. I thought that was a cool visual. Finally, we find Hannah, and it's what would have been a really cool kill of the collector. Obviously, we're not going to kill the collector, but I think or not in this way, not this early. But man, I love the idea of using the water and the TV to kind of use that as a kill. It just happened to be on the wrong person. So I thought that was really cool, really nice visual. I have no idea how that will play out in real life, but I can't imagine that being any, I think that was a pretty realistic idea of what would happen if those two things combined to kill someone. So all in all, you get this set of scenes is basically all about the kills, and I think they're all pretty damn good -1. So that's what I took away from this set of scenes.
All right. So the first note that I have in this set of scenes is, quote, "What a dumbass." Like, I get it. Seeing your husband all cut up and mutilated is traumatizing, but to just yell and take off running up the stairs, like, that's she was ready to go at that point. You can't convince me otherwise. She wanted to die. It was really tough to watch, like you said, seeing her mouth get sewn up like that. Holy shit, that was tough. it's good to see that the collector went down to Bear Trap R Us and set up for Bear Trap-A-Mania. That was crazy. I've never seen so many bear traps. Fucking awesome. Finally, 59 minutes in, we do actually get someone. Jill did ask why he was in the house. It was kind of glossed over and he didn't answer. But she did finally, we get
You're
someone
right.
that lives in this house asking
right.
why he's here. Thank you. Well, why the hell would he worry about saving Larry? Who the fuck is Larry? This guy's trapped in a box. He's fucked. If I'm Arkin at this point, I have no ties to Larry. I get it. You want to be the good person sometimes, but he's obviously a liability. He's got hooks through his feet or some shit. Like, he can't walk. You're not gonna get out successfully, the two of you. So he's not even on my radar if I'm Arkin. I didn't like that. He looks back and he sees Hannah there. Now, funny thing is, there's an alternate ending where Arkin escapes the house and sees the little girl, but instead of rescuing her, he flips her off and walks away. That shit would have been funny, but I'm glad we didn't go that route. But glad he finally found her there, and I think we get a really cool shot of Larry getting electrocuted. And it's a kind of a funny death at the same time. I like how the camera is like you're under the floor perspective as he's being electrocuted. But it was kind of funny because the collector was really using him as a human shield and then a battering ram to bust into the door. Like, that's stuff you usually see on like cartoons. So that was pretty funny to watch. But overall, I mean, it's another decent set of scenes because a lot's going on and we're moving and shaking here, moving towards what we feel is going to be a pretty good finale.
All right, guys, here's the ending. Cut through the house as we see all the carnage and death. Hannah hides under the desk as he ties his mask back on. The lights come on and we see Arkin handcuffed with fish hooks in his hands, and he has his forehead sliced open. He has fish hooks in his back, holding him in place. He says to just let her go. You got me, you'll never find her anyway. Collector pulls out a hammer and chisel and begins to knock his teeth out. He shows Arkin a tooth, mocking him. Arkin says stay away, and the collector walks towards the desk. Arkin calls him some explicit names and yells, fuck you. Collector brings in some giant roaches now and cuts his stomach and holds a jar to his wound and holds a lighter under the jar. He stops when a cop car pulls up outside. The cop walks around the home and looks inside and says, oh my God. He runs the perimeter and sees the collector outside. He tells him to freeze and drop the weapon, but the cop is attacked by the dog and has his throat bit as he calls for more help. The collector snaps his neck as we see Arkin get free from the hooks. He picks the cuffs on his feet and tells Hannah to stay back. He goes into the room with Victoria and sees he's going to blow the house up. Collector turns the cop's radio off and takes the shotgun. He enters the house and lets the dog free. Arkin climbs up the chute and pulls Hannah up before the dog can get a hold of her. Arkin lights some paper on fire and shoves the bucket onto the dog's face. Arkin now throws the dog at the collector, who shoots the dog, killing it. Arkin and the collector fight now in the kitchen. Arkin finally gets the upper hand, kicking him down the basement steps and locking him down there. He takes his keys and they try and unlock the door, but the keys are broken. The collector shoots the handle out and is back in pursuit. He shoots a reflection of them and the trap chandelier full of knives falls on him. Arkin runs outside with Hannah and they make it to the road where we see several cop cars approaching. Arkin runs into the road and is run over as Hannah sees it from the brush. Arkin thinks it's the collector grabbing Hannah, but it's an officer. Arkin is loaded onto a stretcher as a cop waves a flare. Arkin sees the home explode as Hannah is placed into a cop car. Cops radio what's happening as Arkin is loaded into the ambulance. An officer asks if it was the guy who was working there earlier and what happened. Another cop tells him the company is Master Trap Extermination and we have an address. He tells the paramedics to take Arkin to the hospital. Close up on a spider as we see Arkin has the jewel and asks what time it is. Just before midnight, he's told. He asks for him to call my wife, but suddenly the ambulance is hit by another vehicle. Arkin is hanging from the stretcher, and he sees the other officer twitching. The collector opens the door, throwing a knife into the officer's eye, killing him. He throws Arkin to the ground below and punches him, and puts him in the red trunk and slams his van door shut as Arkin yells no. He removes the signs from his driver's door window and drives away. And yet again, I failed this week to realize that there's a very, very, very end credit scene which I did not include until it was too late. So I apologize. But Mike, what did you think of the ending?
Mixed bag. I like the strategy of Arkin to kind of get out of here. I wasn't sure how they were going to quote unquote trap the trap setter. And they did a pretty good job. Like, I mean, any chance I would have had to kill this guy, I would have hopped on it immediately. Like, I know pushing him down the stairs and locking him in that room, or attempting to anyway, is smart on the fly. But I would have really, really tried my best to just kill this son of a bitch while I had a chance. And I think they, Arkin kind of messed that up a little bit. Now, I do think a flaming dog with a trash can on its head being exploded in midair because of the gun was a cool visual. I don't know how logical it was and how much sense it made, but I thought it was a pretty cool look. So yeah, here's where the bad comes in to me. I feel like a much better. Now, I did not know they were going. The first time I ever saw this movie was probably about a year after it came out. I did not know they were going to go into a sequel at all. And so I think a really nice ending would have just been letting Arkin go off into the sunset and letting the little girl live, pretty well. I will say, cool visual shot when Arkin gets ran over, which was the funniest part of this movie, not going to lie. I couldn't help myself but bust out laughing at that. But him laying on the ground and looking at Hannah there, where he thinks the collector's behind her, but as an officer, I thought that was a cool shot. Much credit to whoever came up with that. I thought that, because that got me. It was like, oh, thank God. So, but back to what I was saying, I think the ambulance fake out was a little too much for me. Normally, I like when a movie has the balls to not end happy. But for whatever reason, this one just didn't hit the way that I would normally like those movies to hit. Once the ambulance wrecks, I'm kind of like, oh shit, this is crazy. But for whatever reason, in this movie, I just knew I don't know, like I didn't love the way that it was pulled off. I didn't like that we got the collector winning in a sense, maybe because he was so evil or so mean spirit. Like, there was no like fun in his kills or anything. So I just don't like the collector, but that's on purpose, so that's okay. I just kind of wish I don't mind another movie. I just don't like the way that it was set up. So all in all, I thought the ending was a mixed bag. Like, I think there's some good and some bad. I will say there's a couple shots here towards the end that I'm just like, what is the point of following a spider? And I know it goes back to the spider in the beginning, but like the way they shoot the rain is kind of strange. Like, there's just a lot of like weird little shots here. So that kind of took it down for me just a smidge. But all in all, it was an okay ending.
So I really don't like the hooks through the skin. That made me really fucking uneasy. Like, I don't know. That's just so to look at, all the hooks going through his skin. It really kind of makes you feel like if you know someone that enjoys fishing, they're probably a bad person. I'm just kidding, Nico. But this guy, of all the shit that he just like shrugs off and nothing phases him, and he's like on a mission, he really hates being called gay slurs. Like, once he starts dropping the F-bomb, he's like, oh, I will not stand for homophobia. And to be fair, Arkin deserved what was coming to him at that point. There's no room for homophobia in the world, but you can't be dropping the F-bomb like 19 times in a 30-second span. But that just was really crazy to me, how nothing was phasing him, but you call him that. Anyway, and then, okay, so the cops get there, and come on, man. The dog took out the cop. Fuck out of here. Like, you're a cop. You're not aware of your surroundings enough. Now, he did look scared shitless, because I guarantee, like, from the way it looks, that cop had never rolled up on a scene like that. And to be fair, I don't know how many bodies you'd ever see in your lifetime mutilated and trapped in bear traps like that, but he was kind of nervous looking anyway. And then a dog just comes out of nowhere and gets him. I hated that. You want to talk about some tension, though? Holy shit! I thought the dog was gonna get her right before he pulled her up the laundry chute. That was a tense scene. I think we get a great fight scene here. Hell yeah, we need more good fight scenes in horror movies. We get weapons and we get kills a lot, but there's no just straight up fist fights, and we get that here, and that's a damn good one. So I really like that. Pretty smart move to use the mirror as a decoy and have him, and then take him out with his own death chandelier. I thought that was pretty cool. And then the motherfucker gets ran over by a cop car. I sent you guys a snippet of my notes. I screenshot that. I was like, this is my favorite thing I've ever typed in my notes for a scene-by-scene breakdown. I laughed my fucking ass off. He got hit by a cop car.
That shit was
God,
hilarious. Oh my god.
That's so good. That's good shit. But, and then I like what you said, Mike. I like also how he looks over and he's kind of freaking out because he doesn't have his wits about him, and he thinks the collector's about to get the little girl, but it's the cop resting, like saving her. Like, that's good shit. Really weird fucking close up of the spider. Why? Like, we get this digital look at, or a look at this digital spider all close up and shit. It didn't make any sense. I get it, like you said, it's a tie back because we find out that it was the exterminator and all that, but it didn't fit with the rest of the movie and how this movie was shot. It made no sense. And also is really out of place because usually when movies do shit like that, it looks like credits. Go ahead, Nico.
I was just going to say that is explained in the collection why he loves insects and all that, but for this movie, it is out of place.
Yeah, no, that's fine why he loves insects. That's fine. But to have it here, and not like loving insects is one thing, but this zoomed in close up, like Honey, We Shrunk Ourselves, or Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, look at this spider, is just completely unnecessary and out of place. And like I said, it also is like, that's the kind of shit you do right before the credits end, or the credits hit. But we're not done yet. Man, what the fuck? They couldn't just let us go home happy, at least semi-happy, with him saving his wife. You have to have him wreck the ambulance and take Arkin. I don't like that. It makes the wife and daughter storyline completely irrelevant because we don't know if the loan shark killed her. Don't know what happened with that. And I get it. It's probably explained in the sequel, but I haven't seen the sequel. I didn't even know these fucking movies existed a couple weeks ago. Get off my back. As far as a standalone film, that, like I said, it just makes Roy and his wife and daughter completely irrelevant. You could have just had Arkin just be a general bad guy. He was in this house. He knows they have money. He went back to line his pockets a little bit, and he walked into some bad shit. That's all the storyline you need. But instead, we get this drawn out shit. We don't know. He's got the fucking rock from that Rose had on the Titanic in his pocket, and we don't know what happened to it. I guess I'll have to watch the damn collection this weekend. I don't know. But it's just, I really wish that the movie would have ended with, the little girl getting saved and Arkin's in the ambulance realizing that, hey, I made it. I need you to call my wife. Roll the fucking credits and let's get out of here.
All right, y'all, let's introduce legendary blood donor Mike Aslesons to the show. We really appreciate you, brother. Do you want to tell all the listeners why you picked The Collector?
Absolutely. The Collector to me is a really underrated horror movie. You know, when I mentioned The Collector to a lot of my friends, a lot of folks just say they've never heard of it. And it's just one of those movies that I really want to bring some more awareness to because it's a great horror movie. The sequel itself is really good, and I know that they were making a third installment of it, but unfortunately COVID kind of put a kink in the works on it. But for sure, the first movie to me is an underrated horror classic.
Awesome, and I agree. It is a little underrated.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
He never even heard of it until it was on the schedule.
Yep, I completely missed it somehow.
I would certainly agree with the statement that it's underrated. I think that's fair. Yeah.
All right, Mike, we're going to jump into our social media comments and questions. Let's jump over to Facebook first. Amber George commented, I enjoyed this movie and the sequel. I'll be honest with you, I did too. Like, I really wasn't, you didn't hear this at the beginning, Mike, but the first time I watched The Collector, I wasn't the biggest fan, but after a rewatch and watching the sequel, I definitely like it a lot more. Abby Renee commented, I had to pre-screen this movie when I worked at the theater. and whoever built the film did it wrong, so I had to keep running up and fixing it, and all it did was make it worse. Not a fan. I have never watched it again. Pretty sure that's a hot take, but I've never attempted to try it again. Maybe it's just me, but movies where there is no point to the killing bugs me, or maybe I just missed the motive. And I replied back to her, I would suggest giving another chance and watching a sequel, The Collection. It does explain the antagonist more, and it's a decent popcorn horror flick. But I'll go into it more later on. And our last comment on Facebook is from Randy Smith. Fun for a modern slasher. By the way, how about them dogs? Sorry, couldn't help it. By the way, good win for the Knowles.
Yeah. Jeez, Randy.
Man, Georgia looked good. I can't even hate.
Nope.
All right, let's jump over to Instagram now. Chris_2020 commented, this film and The Collection are a great double feature in my opinion, and still hoping we get to see The Collected sometime in the near future. I would like to see where they take it too, because I really don't have a clue where they would take it, honestly.
Yeah.
Danny C. Naps commented, big fan of the show. This is a fun watch and a very interesting antagonist. I also like the sequel, but I didn't enjoy the story as much in it. This concept is super scary. I'll agree with you. Because it feels so real. Like human abduction is real, and it's terrifying. And Grace from the Gore Girls podcast commented, good luck with this one, because I listened to their review, and Grace wasn't the biggest fan of this movie, but we appreciate the comment as always. Let's jump over to fun facts. Dustin, you want to go first? Or you want me to knock out the two I have?
Yeah, I just got a couple here. So the writers intended this movie to be a Saw prequel, but the idea was declined. I'm glad they did that because, Jigsaw had more of a defined motive and purpose, and he gave people a quote unquote fair shot at escaping. So, I'm glad they nixed that idea. And then last one I got was originally set up and financed by Dimension Films. The Collector was dropped by the Castrap Studio after they didn't have the funds to release the film. Lydell Entertainment snatched up the rights from Dimension and gave the film a brief but successful theatrical run in 2009.
That's because they put all their money into Halloween 2 and then that's the only Dimension released 2 films that year, and one was Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. It ended up running out of money after that movie.
I mean, to be fair, that movie is almost a cinematic masterpiece. So,
sir, that movie cost them way more money than it ever could have made them. But okay,
it also sucked.
All right, I'll go real quick with my fun facts. The first one is Like Saw from 2004. This film was also inspired by Seven, who Dustin loved because it had Brad Pitt in it. And the last one I have is
great
The Collector
horror movie.
The Collector urban legend is really a catch-all legend for creepy hermitic neighbors that may be doing something horrifying inside their dungeon-like basements. The most common Collector legend is the neighbor who collects human body parts and proudly displays them in mason jars. In Russia, the Collector urban legend has a bright future because it played out in real life. Its new mascot is local Russian historian Anatoly Moskvin, who stole corpses from cemeteries in dozens of towns east of Moscow. According to police, he dug up at least 29 corpses and made dolls out of them, life-size, faceless female dolls with platinum blonde wigs. I've heard about that true crime story, and that is terrifying, my friends.
Absolutely.
Mike, did you have any fun facts, or you just want to go ahead and let Mike knock out the budget?
Yeah, let me talk about Dustin's thing that he has the most of, money. This movie was made for a cool $3 million and made $10.2 million. So, a nice little turnaround on the budget and investment there. It's no wonder that it ended up getting a sequel. So, yeah, man, 10.2 is nothing to sneeze at when you only put 3 in.
Absolutely. Mike Aselson, did you have any fun facts? Or are you ready to move on to the favorite kill, least favorite kill, and the rating?
No, I think you guys really summed it up with, especially the fact that I remember when I first heard about this movie before it obviously became an actual film. But I remember hearing that it was supposed to be a Saw prequel, and I was like, oh, interesting. I'm a huge Saw fan. Obviously, Marcus Dunstan, the director, obviously wrote Saws 4 through 3D. And I'm thinking in my head, oh, great, here we go. We have a prequel story to John Kramer. Obviously, it didn't come into fruition, but I think this one is as best as you can get to something that's just as impactful in terms of everything that you would want from a horror movie.
Oh, absolutely, man. Uh, but like I said, let's jump into our favorite kill, least favorite kill, and the rating. Who wants to kick us off tonight? I'll do it if you want me to. All right,
Go for it.
all right, I'll go first. My favorite kill, the boyfriend and the bear traps. Honestly, a lot of good kills. Whew, but old boy went through it. Stabbed through the hand, had his fingers cut off, then limbs cut off via bear trap and head trapped in a bear trap. That's super gnarly. That was, whew, I felt bad for that guy. Least favorite kill. This was kind of tough to choose because there's really not any bad kills I could think of. But I just chose Larry electrocuted, just because that was my least favorite. I really didn't have a reason. Just I had to pick one. All right, so I did write a little bit, so I apologize, but bear with me. I like but don't love this movie. I like the antagonist and protagonist. The collector is very well acted. He looks creepy, even in his innocence dealing with the insects. I'm also a huge Josh Stewart fan. He's a law abiding citizen. I love that movie. And I really like him as Arkin. He's one of the smartest, for the most part, antagonists you'll see in a movie. Protagonist. The traps, gore, kills, and effects all look great. It's got a great runtime where I'm never bored. All right, so my issues are with the writing and believability. The collector doesn't have anywhere near the amount of time to set up all these traps, which clearly weren't there when Arkin breaks into the home. That is a huge issue with me, which I feel like Marcus Dunstan. I think like he could have done better with that because, like you said, Mike, he wrote 4, 5, and 6 of Saw. I love that trilogy, so I really feel like he should have did that a little better. I also wish Arkin and his wife's financial issues and backstory would have been more explained. Arkin's worked at this home for a hot minute, and there hasn't been a killer dog, but now there is. It should be a big red flag to Arkin. He also had opportunities to take out the collector, but doesn't, which is frustrating. Another qualm is the collector and how strong he is. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen the collection, but it's revealed he's just some average guy who is an entomologist, but can set up all these elaborate traps and is a great fighter and master knifesman. Anywho, I don't hate this movie. I quite enjoy it, but I can never rate it super high due to my issues. I gave it a 6.25, almost matching the IMDb score of 6.3.
I'll go ahead and go real quick. So let's knock out the kills first. My favorite kill was Jill's boyfriend, just because that was a gnarly bear trap scene. And there was some good gore before with the knife to the hand and the fingers getting chopped off. So the whole thing as a package deal was pretty awesome. My least favorite kill was the cop. What a dumbass, man. Pretty lame ass cop to not notice the dog and then to let it take you out and get your neck snapped like that. Like, kind of had that coming, you asshole. As far as the movie goes, I think it's a pretty good movie. Like I said, there's some great traps and good gore. It's a short and easy watch. I'd never seen it before, but I would definitely recommend it. And I'm going to knock out the sequel this weekend because it appears I need to. And also, I enjoyed this one, so why not go ahead and do that? I do have my issues as well, which I touched on them in the scene by scene breakdown, so I won't rehash them here. But overall, it's not perfect, but it's very decent. So I gave it a 7.25.
Yeah, I think this movie's best attribute, really quick, is how unique it is, and so I'm glad that you felt the same way, Dustin. So I had a hard time picking my favorite kill because, golly, I think there was some really gnarly kills. My favorite, all in all, was the boyfriend though, and the big bear trap. That's a big ass bear trap if I've ever seen one. So I love that kill. I think it's awesome. My least favorite kill is also the cop because what a freaking idiot. Freaking let a Cujo Jr. kill you or whatever. But anyway, all right. So no, okay. So like I said, I think this movie's best attribute is how unique it is. There's not another movie like it. Like I talked about how similar it seems to Saw, but it's different in the way where you get Arkin, but you also get the collector that's on his heels. They're both kind of there for bad reasons, and one just happens to have a little bit of a moral compass and suddenly becomes a good guy. Like, that's not something that we see in a lot of horror movies. I really like that about this film. A few more things I like I've already talked about, but I want to hit on them again really quick. I think the acting is good. I think a lot of the kills are great. I like this story. I think it's interesting. I think it's unique. I think it's different. There's some things I didn't like. I wasn't big on the music. There's some consistencies in the writing. I think now I know that the collection answers some of those things, and it does. But as far as a standalone movie, there are just some open-ended stuff, some stuff that doesn't quite make a whole lot of sense. But hey, I've already talked about it enough. I really like it. It's and when I said at the beginning it was just okay, I don't mean that in a bad way, because I would watch this again. I've watched it before, and I know at a later time I'll watch it again. So all in all, I gave this movie a 6.75. I couldn't quite go 7. If this movie just had a little bit better music or score, I think I would have bumped it up just a smidge to give it that 7 flat. But I went 6.75, which is a good thing.
Yeah. And for myself, my favorite kill is going to be Larry. So the guy that got abducted in the beginning of the movie, just because of the living hell that this guy went through. Like, you get abducted, obviously, your wife dies in the beginning of the movie, but not only that, it's like an ice cream sundae for a kill, in my perspective. Like, you get your head, slammed essentially into a door, and then on top of it, you're getting electrocuted by the protagonist when he has nothing but good intentions. So definitely, to me, when I watched it the first time, that was the holy shit moment, was seeing that kill. Now my least favorite kill is going to be an off-screen kill. Sorry, I hate to be a cheap guy that's cheaping out on it, but the
No,
dad,
I get it.
the dad to
Dad.
me was the worst
Yep.
kill, because it looked great in the finality of it, I guess, right? You see a guy that's disemboweled, you're like, whoa, holy crap. But it's like, well, I mean, why couldn't we see a little bit about that? This is a movie that was written by somebody that made the Saw franchise, essentially, right? So why do we cheap out right there? So yeah, that would be my least favorite kill. Overall, though, I have to disagree respectfully on the music. I think the music in this movie
It's fair.
was very unique to the movie itself, for sure. Um, to me, you don't have a lot of slasher movies that have come out over the last 15 years. So to me, this is an underrated modern slasher movie.
Absolutely.
It's an original concept for sure. A robber breaks into the house and there's already a killer in the house. This is something that we haven't really explored before. Stylistically speaking, I love the Saw movies, and there was a lot of Saw vibes stylistically, specifically with the lighting of the movie. A lot of greens, those kind of tones to the movie itself, which really lent a hand to the folks that went into this movie, based off being Saw fans themselves. Um, Overall, I'm going to give this movie. Well, I mean, I could give it a 10 theoretically because I picked it, but
You
I'm gonna
could.
I'm gonna
You
be
should.
fair. I'm going to be fair
Okay.
because I get it. I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10 myself.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So that gives the four of us a composite score of a 7.0625.
So that's pretty
Nico
damn good.
mentioned IMDb has it as 6.3. So
What do they know? They don't know
they don't
shit.
know shit. They don't know their ass from a hole in the ground.
That's right. Only if they agree with us. Only if they agree with us, then they're the smartest people on the internet.
The other thing I like about it is I'm a big John Carpenter fan in general, and one thing that John Carpenter,
Man, I wish Brian were here. Dang.
but the one thing that I like about Carpenter films is they're very ambiguous endings. Every one of
Right.
his movies leave off on a tone where you're like, I wonder what happens next. And this movie totally encapsulates the John Carpenter feel of a movie. Now, we get it. There's a sequel out right now, right? I mean, but back then when this came out, you're wondering what in the hell happens at the very end of this movie, right? And I think that has a very Carpenter vibe to it, and it's definitely a big reason why I love this movie, and it's a yearly watch for sure.
Absolutely, and it's awesome that the collector and the collection are both available on Prime as well. So, all our listeners, I'll just save you some money this
Yep,
weekend. If you don't have anything to watch, check out the collector and the collection on Prime. I mean, it only
absolutely.
take you. Heck, it won't even take 3 hours of your time, honestly, to watch both of them. So,
Nope.
I would highly recommend both of them. Mike, I
The
just want to.
collection is not free on Prime though. I'm looking at it right now. It's $3.99.
And
It
$4
was
for both
it was
movies.
free for
Not
me
bad.
to watch it the other night on Prime.
Mm.
It's
Must have
worth
that
it.
Prime
Besides the first scene of the movie, first scene of the
You got
movie,
that
first
Bezos Prime
first scene of the
package.
movie of the sequel is a little cringe, but it
Yeah, it's a little. Yeah,
you know it tightens it up a little bit after that.
yeah, it does.
I agree. The collection definitely has a. It's fun. I don't know how to say it any different, but it's just
It's a
fun.
little more. It's a little more fun than this movie, but it's not as good. At least not to me.
Yeah, I would say it's probably honestly about the same for me. Just because I'm a big Josh Stewart fan, I like the ending with him. Uh, Mike, I just want to thank you for being a legendary blood donor. I apologize it's
Yeah,
taken
man.
so
Thank you
long
so
for
much,
us
Mike.
to get to this review, but I
Yeah.
appreciate your patience. Any final thoughts from you, Mike, before we close this episode out?
No, not at all. I don't have any more final thoughts other than I agree. I love Josh Stewart. I think he's a phenomenal actor. Uh, he's still a accessible actor. Nico, as I showed you my collection, no point intended. I collect a lot of horror movie stuff, and I do actually have a movie mask from this movie, and I showed it to him on Instagram, and he responded and was like, "That's really badass! Like, that's so cool that someone has a actual replica of the hero mask from the movie." So, yeah, good dude. Love him. And if he ever did horror conventions, man, I'd be the first guy in line to get his autograph.
Oh yeah, I would love to get him on the show. Uh, Mike, I just want to thank you one more time for coming on the show. I want
Yes.
to thank
Thank you
all
so
our
much, Mike. We
want to thank
appreciate
all
it,
our
man.
fans and listeners. I really appreciate the support. We're going to work our best to get this Apple Podcast situation fixed
Yeah.
because it's very frustrating. But thank you to all the fans and listeners. Really appreciate it, and y'all have a good one. Just want to remind everybody